All right, welcome to today's episode of College Admissions 101. We're going to focus on standardized testing and the calendar in light of the coronavirus pandemic. You are joined tonight by me, Jeff Knox, and my colleague Katy Dunn. Go ahead, and Katy, and say hi.
Hi, I'm Katy Dunn. So excited to be here with you tonight.
And so Katy and I work together, and we help students and families make decisions about their education, especially as they're gearing up for college admissions. And we give talks and webinars on a variety of topics. And if you are interested in hearing about more about college admissions, especially with everything that's been going on in the world, then you can tune back next week, same time, same place, Wednesdays at 5:10 to hear about various topics in college admissions. We will also have a channel on Thursdays starting this week, Thursdays at 5:10, and that channel will focus purely on the application and essay process. So especially if you are in the class of 2021, you are a current junior, Thursday's class will be especially interesting for you because this is the kind of work you could be managing right now. And if you miss any of these classes, and I should mention that we have a variety of academic classes in AP coursework and test prep, we make this available on our YouTube channel. So if you are unable to finish today's episode, or if you can't make it to another one, as long as you're registered, you'll automatically get an email that links you to the recording. But if you need a recording for a particular class, then you can email classes@prepmatters.com and get a recording of anything that maybe you've missed. And if you'd like to reach out directly to Katy or to me, our contact information is on the screen now, and we'll give you this contact information again. And feel free to reach out, whether it's via Twitter or email, or even just giving us a call at 301-951-0350. It's not bothering us. We love to talk about this stuff. So feel free to ask questions or ask for some advice. With that, let's get started with today's topic, planning a testing calendar. And Katy and I were planning this talk as we did last week's talk. And a lot of what we are reviewing today are topics that we review anyway. And you're going to get some advice today that would be true whether it was 3 months ago or 3 days from now. And we want to make sure we give you that good advice. But obviously, things have changed in the last few weeks, certainly with how you might have had your standardized testing plans. And so we are going to give you the most up-to-date information that we can today. That might be different tomorrow. So one of your...
It was different yesterday.
It was different yesterday. That's a very good point. It was different 2 hours ago, actually. And we encourage you, we challenge you, we want you to take on the ownership of staying up to date and tracking down this information. But if you've got a lot on your plate, which many of you probably do, personally, academically, professionally, then you know you can come to us and trust us as a resource to get you the kind of information that you know you need to have. And that might come from joining us for these classes, or again, directly reaching out to us. We're here to help. So let's dig right into it.
I want to add one more thought. One of the reasons we put this conversation so early in our series is that this is one of the pieces that seems to be causing a good deal of anxiety, particularly because it feels like it is a little bit out of your control when folks like the College Board and the ACT are the ones who have information about when testing will happen. And so we're hopeful that kind of walking through all of these pieces will, like all the work we try and do, will just help everybody feel like there's a little more of this process that they can feel in control in and can manage, which makes it significantly less stressful. Now you can go.
I don't know how many times you out there in television land have heard this. I can guess how many times Katy has heard it and how many times I've said it, but I always start with my presentation on college admissions topics with this table, or this table you're about to see, and it comes from the National Association of College Admissions Counseling. And until recently, I've kind of held that organization as my special, Katy's special and my special kind of resource for school counselors to get the intel on college admissions. But it occurs to me in this moment that there's nothing stopping from any of you out there to going to NACAC's websites and learning about what the governing body for college admissions counseling is doing and what new updates they are keeping track of. So go to NACAC.org, I think it is, or just Google NACAC or Nationals. Say again?
I think so, NACAC.org.
Thank you, yeah. Or just Google National Association of College Admissions Counseling, and you can get this information yourself. We don't own this information, we just happen to be plugged in. And they produce an academic journal on college admissions that comes out every month, and once a year, there's an edition that's called The State of College Admissions. And I look forward to that every year, and when it comes out, I dig right into it, and I especially zero in.
He gets really excited.
I especially zero in on this table that's there every time. Factors in admissions decisions. And I like to show it not because this is the formula for how you can figure out college admissions, how you can best position yourself for the particular schools you're looking at or looking to apply to. This is, it's data from over 400 colleges. There are about 3,200 four-year institutions out there, so it's a sample size. And not every college is the same, especially now. So this is not to give you a ranking of where you should place your energy, but to give you a sense of all the different factors that could be at play, and then to know that for the particular colleges that you're interested in, these factors might rank differently. You probably already know that there are schools that don't need admissions tests. They don't look at the SAT or ACT if you don't want them to. They actually refuse to look at subject tests from the College Board. And so your job is to dig into the testing policies of the particular schools you're interested in now more than ever, and we're going to talk about the latest updates as far as test optional schools go. But that is the point of showing this table, is that there's a number of puzzle pieces here and it might look different. But it is interesting to know that more than 80% of colleges, at least when this came out with the data from 2018 and 2019, placed considerable or moderate importance on the SAT and ACT. Let's see what that number looks like next year, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. I don't know, Katy, do you think it'll go up, down, stay the same?
I try not to make predictions because college higher ed and college admissions is a little bit tricky. But I think what we are seeing is that it really varies by school. I think we will continue to see more schools shift how they consider the SAT and the ACT. But certainly some schools are really digging in and feel very strongly about it, and it's often used as a tool to help kind of equalize some of the numbers they're looking at. So I think I'm not convinced that we know what will happen.
That's fair, and I agree. And then we can't leave this slide without reminding you that, generally speaking, and there's really not a lot of exception here, the grades in your coursework and the strength of your curriculum reign on high. This is by far the most important factor when admissions officers have to make decisions about applications. On a different topic, if you tune into our channel, we'll talk about what that means for right now, because I've been getting a lot of questions from my students about, well, wait a minute, will they understand, will they take into context what I'm going through, what my school is going through, what my community is going through in terms of my transcripts and online courses, and whether teachers are grading in the same way, or whether my school's going pass fail.
Or grading at all.
Or grading at all, exactly. The short answer is yes, because they're going through it too, but we can dig into that.
One of our upcoming weeks.
Yes. So standardized testing options, an alphabet soup of options here. We're not going to dig into the details of the format and makeup and of every single test here, but these are the testing options that we're going to cover today. Katy, why don't you take us through some of the questions that we're going to make sure we talk about today?
So like Jeff said, we'll shift a little bit what we sometimes cover in this conversation, but also we will take a broad look at what standardized testing, what role it plays in college admissions, and how you as an individual can organize your calendar. So we'll take a look at how this year might be different for that because of what's happening with the coronavirus pandemic. And part of that, it really is based on some changes that are coming directly from the College Board, from schools, from IB, and from ACT. So we'll look at really kind of right now, the next 6 months, and then the 6 months after that, and just kind of think about all the different chunks of information that we do have so that you can plan for your own personal calendar. And then we'll also kind of take a little bit of a step back and think about, well, what does all this mean? How do I pick the SAT or the ACT? How often do I take it? What do colleges care? Are they going to judge me if I take it a lot of times, or judge me if I don't take it enough times? How are colleges looking at my score? People like me throw around words like super scoring and score choice all the time. I just finished a meeting with a student who I've met with 4 times in the past couple of weeks. And I said something about super scoring, and he said, well, can you tell me what that is? And I realized I had been using that term a lot and hadn't yet really explained it. So we'll kind of go into all the different overall things about standardized testing in addition to the just this moment things. And then we'll talk about some of the different kinds of tests. So, subject tests, which also come from the College Board, AP exams, IB exams. And then as Jeff pointed out earlier, you know, what do colleges need? What are they looking for? And which colleges aren't asking for this at all? So that's a lot for us to pour into 1 hour, but we got it.
So if you are interested in digging into the nitty gritty about SAT and ACT and the differences and how you can know which one's right for you and how to prepare for these tests, then I encourage you to check out our other channel on the SAT and ACT, or at least get access to those recordings, or of course, you know, we have plenty of tutors to talk with you about that. But in terms of the topic today, which is how do I plan out when I'm going to take these tests? I mean, when I'll use myself as an example. Maybe there's some parents listening today who will relate. I don't even remember. I just kind of walked in one day, fall of senior year, and took the SAT, and that was that. And whatever the score was, that was my fate. That's who I was for the rest of my life, and that was that. Now people understand how these tests work a little bit better. There have been changes that have made it. It makes sense to look way ahead and map out what all your options are and how you can optimize your testing plan by looking ahead. And generally speaking, this is something that you can start looking at even as early as freshman year, but certainly sophomore year. Now, if you're a junior or senior and you're like, what? I'm just now thinking about this stuff, don't fret, it's okay. But if you are listening to us and you're wondering if this is relevant to you and you're a freshman or sophomore or a parent of a freshman and sophomore, absolutely. And juniors and seniors who are listening, you maybe are already in the middle of your testing calendar, but things have just been, you know, everything's in an upheaval, and we're going to take care of you today by giving you the best information possible to make choices about your next step.
And remember as we go along that you can ask any questions you'd like in the question and answer box, and we will either answer them during this webinar or directly write to you. So feel free, if we're going to go pretty quickly through some things, and so feel free to just stop and say, hey, I have a question about that or about something we haven't mentioned. Katy,
do you want to go ahead and deliver the news?
So, and you keep an eye on your email in case something changes while I'm talking. So one of the reasons that it's important to think about a testing calendar is because there's a lot on your plate as a student, junior and senior year in high school. Even honestly, with this time spent at home, I know all of you are still keeping up with coursework, interacting with your friends and family. There's a lot going on. And so typically the SAT and the ACT both offer a number of different test date options. And here's what's happening with them right now in light of the virus. So in February, the ACT was able to still successfully have its international testing. The SAT had some testing, and around here we were able to have some tests, but by the time the SAT date came around in March, some local test centers in Maryland and in various other parts of the country had already closed, and so that was a sort of mixed bag. Both SAT and ACT have canceled their next test dates, which were scheduled for this week, actually, for April 4th and for May. Those are both canceled. ACT has actually said that what they think they were doing is canceling this April date, but moving all of those students to their June date. So they are anticipating the June date being a very big testing option. And this is a place where we see SAT and ACT taking a slightly different tactic. So the SAT has told us, and we've Jeff and I have been in a couple webinars just like this one with some folks from the College Board and some colleges just about every day for the past couple of weeks. And the College Board is committed to having many test dates available, and hopefully, if they have to cancel any, like they did in May, being able to create another date when you could take it. The ACT, I think, is a little more worried that there might not be as many dates available. So what they are suggesting is that they are going to make sure that there are plenty of seats available every time they are able to offer a test date. So they're approaching it from slightly different angles, but both SAT and ACT are really committed to making sure that you can access these tests. So right now, they're both planning on having a June test date. SAT told us that they would probably let us know in about 2 weeks if that was really a viable option. And ACT has said they will make sure to announce whatever changes they intend to make about a month in advance. So if something were to happen to that June test date, we'd probably hear about it in mid-May. And if anything were to happen to that July test date, we'd probably hear about it in mid-June. Right now, it looks like SAT and ACT are hopeful that they'll be able to go forward with the summer dates. And then SAT has indicated it will probably add at least one test date in the fall. That was a lot that I just said in one breath.
Yes. But did you mention ACT's comment about perhaps offering regional?
About looking at some online options?
Actually, no. So if I remember correctly from one of the webinars, and I apologize if you already covered it, the ACT may even go forward with a June date, even if that means they have to allow it for only certain regions of the country. For example, if Virginia extends its shelter-in-place order past June 13th, when it's supposed to happen, they won't have an ACT in Virginia, but they might have one in Pennsylvania or in Wyoming, wherever that if they're allowed to.
Right, I had not mentioned that. That's a great catch. The other, ACT is also still very committed to offering their section-only retakes starting in September, which is, we thought that was going to be the interesting thing about testing this year, but it turns out it's not nearly as interesting as these other questions.
And in case anyone in our audience isn't aware of that announcement, Katie, could you flesh that out a little bit?
Sure, and again, there are some folks on our team who are doing full PMTV classes on the SAT and ACT, so feel free to check my math by listening to them. But so right now, both the SAT and the ACT have multiple sections that you take. It's a long test, much longer than you would take in school. And every time you want to retake it, if you'd like to take it again, you take all of those sections and get a full score report with everything you've been tested on. What the ACT has proposed is that starting this September of 2020, students will be allowed, once they have already taken the full test, maybe you took, if you were, say, me in high school, maybe you took the full test and your math section was not quite as strong as some of your other sections. And so they're now giving students the option to retake just that one section instead of retaking the whole exam if really what you were concerned about was trying to raise that one score. This comes into play because colleges, we'll talk about this a little bit later, colleges look at scores in different ways, and some colleges try really hard to make sure they are looking at your highest score across each section of the test, each test date you took it for each section. And so that would be what we call super scoring. It's possible that you could use this single section test to raise your super score. So the details are still a little bit unclear, and they are intending to offer these exams online through your school technology. And so I think there's still some of the logistics to be sorted out, but it does, according to the conversation we had last night, the ACT is still on track to start offering that in September.
All right, so this is what the calendar normally looks like. And there's a kind of a partner date between the SAT and the ACT. For every date the SAT offers, there's something similar offered by the ACT, and I'm sure that's a fair agreement that maybe they work together on. One of the few things perhaps they do work together on. But this is what it would normally look like. And as you can tell from our slide before that, you now have perhaps some obstacles you weren't expecting. But just to give you perspective on what you could have expected, or if you are perhaps younger, you're a freshman or sophomore, well then, let's hope for the best, plan for the worst, but this is what you might be able to expect when the world returns to normal. Now, we wanted to show this slide because this is a great visual to see how the dates fall on the calendar. And if I'm the SAT, which has suggested that for every date that was partially or fully canceled, we're going to try to provide a new date, and including school administered test dates, which that's kind of separate from the nationally offered official test dates. Well, I got to figure out where to fit those into the calendar. And so when you look at the bottom of the arrow and you see all of the SATs that are offered throughout the year, there are some gaps. There is no SAT offered in January. There used to be, but years ago they took that date away, and now there's no SAT in January. There's no SAT in July. There's no SAT in September. So if I need to make up March, May, and possibly June, then perhaps I'm going to be looking at those gaps to push in new dates. July of this year, September of this year, January of this year. This is not an announcement from the College Board. This is purely conjecture. This is just Katy and I are just guessing that's where they might pop up.
Yeah.
But that's something to possibly have in the back of your head if you're worried about the gap between when you took your last SAT or when you were expecting to take your subject tests, which are offered on the same dates, and the next possible date, which could be August. Maybe there's going to be a July one before that. And of course, we hope for the best, plan for the worst, but it is possible that the fall would be impacted as well by the coronavirus pandemic.
One other thing to just mention on that, you can stay on this slide, but a good thing to mention as you're thinking about your timeline, we're all a little bit caught up right now in the questions of the pandemic and the questions of what the SAT or the ACT might do. But again, you want to make sure that you maintain control of your own schedule and your own timeline. And for some of us, particularly if you are an active fall athlete, for instance, or you go on, hopefully, family vacation this summer, you just also want to take into account the times of year when you yourself will be at your best and your most kind of open and ready for prep. And one of our slides, I think, says to make sure also it is a time of year when you can be the most well rested. It is remarkable how big a difference sleep makes, particularly in everything, but particularly in standardized testing. So that may be one of the silver linings of the coronavirus for all of us. Once we get back out there and take these tests, everyone's going to be well rested.
Yeah, one can hope. That would be good. So this is an example of a slide that Katy and I said, you know what, let's keep it, even though it's pulled right from our traditional testing calendar presentation, to give a sense of what's typical, like what's normal when you're trying to plan out a testing calendar. And generally, we ask students to begin their test prep in earnest. They're seriously getting ready for the official SAT or ACT sometime in the summer after 10th grade. If there's a reason to think that a student needs a lot more prep than perhaps what's typical, or you just have a very eager student who enjoys test prep, then perhaps spring of 10th grade would be an okay start time. But if you're thinking about test prep before that, it might be because you're getting a little bit of an intro for a PSAT, which could be offered in 9th to 10th grade and certainly in 11th grade, or you're not necessarily meeting with a SAT tutor every week in 9th grade, but you're paying attention to how well you're doing in math, your strengths and weaknesses in math. You're paying attention to how much you're consuming in terms of reading, whether it was assigned to you by an English or history teacher or another teacher, or just you're reading on your own, fiction, nonfiction, periodicals, the news, everything. And that's
Everything. Read anything. It all counts. It's all great.
and so before 10th grade, that's really the best way to test prep, is to read and to work on your math so that you are positioned to do well with the actual prep that comes in summer after 10th grade. And that summer after 10th grade, one of the first things you do is you determine the direction of your prep. Do you want SAT or ACT? And so if you're sitting here and you are older than a 10th grader and you're thinking, I don't even know whether I should take the SAT or ACT, this would be a great time to figure that out. All you got to do to start is take a practice SAT full length. You can proctor it yourself. We also offer a virtual proctoring. You can take a full-length practice ACT, and then you just compare, obviously, the scores, but also your experience, and see what you like better, what test jives with you best. If it's not clear, if you dislike them the same, or like them the same, or the scores are about the same, then perhaps the insight of a test prep tutor and someone watching you work through the material will help you make that clear over the course of a few weeks. And then once you have that decision, you can put your energy in either the SAT or the ACT. There's really no reason for a student, in my view, to take both officially. The school, all four-year institutions like them the same. They both contribute to their U.S. News and World Report ranking. They both offer them the same kind of data. So there's no advantage to the SAT or the ACT except that maybe one is a better test for you. And figuring out that question initially is probably the first step to take.
And sort of big picture, I think the reason this slide is up here is you want to think about it as a cycle. You'll choose a test and you'll take that test, and then probably you'll do a retake. You might do 2 retakes. Not everyone does. And so the reason there's really no benefit in any year of kind of trying to focus on both at once, but particularly this year, is if we have fewer test dates, you want to be able to just focus on the test that you are taking. It doesn't help you in any way, and in fact, it ultimately probably kind of confuses it too much to try and take more than one when there's no benefit at all.
The students I work with tend to aim for the first official test date either in December of 11th grade or February or March of 11th grade. That's what I tend to see. That is not necessarily the best start time for you, and that isn't even the national average start time. That national average start time, I'm guessing, is later, and probably many students in the country take it for the first time the fall of senior year. But for the students who I work with, and obviously I'm an educational planner, I help them plan, that's generally where I aim. There are reasons to start early or to start late outside of a pandemic. And one of those reasons to start early could be that you are ready. You've been prepping and you have been measuring your progress, and you are performing at the level that you want, and you want to capture it now and not have to worry about it later. Another reason that you might want to start early, and actually this might be on next slide, so I'm going to move on, is that you're a recruited athlete and you want to have at least the initial official score that's a promising, maybe not the highest score that you get, but a promising enough score that you can show in your coach early. And so a lot of recruited athletes or potential recruited athletes will start their test prep plan early because they want to get an official score in the fall of junior year at the latest, or likely aiming for that July ACT before junior year, or that August ACT or August SAT before junior year. And then there are obvious reasons to start later than that. You maybe just need more time. Maybe you weren't able to do the test prep in the summer after 10th grade. Maybe you're a junior right now and you're hearing this webinar or this class and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't started. Well, then yeah, you're going to start later. That's okay. Sometimes there are scheduling conflicts. A lot of students who are not necessarily being recruited for crew, rowing, but they love it and they're heavily involved in it. Well, the regatta season just makes these March and April dates and these May dates impossible. They won't be available for any weekend, and these tests are offered pretty much only on the weekends unless you have a school-based test during the week. And so that would be a reason perhaps that you push your testing a little later.
Yep.
Moral of the story is that everyone's different, and planning ahead will let you.
And colleges don't look at the date you took the test. They aren't concerned about whether you took it in February or July or September. That's not the question they are asking themselves. So it really matters just that you make the right calendar for you.
Very good point.
Oh, let me talk about this because I've been talking about super scoring all night. So ultimately, so you take these tests, but they don't belong to colleges. They belong to you, and they are housed by these testing organizations, the ACT and the College Board. And so when you get around to applying to college, you control how you send your test scores to them. And that means a couple different things. For some schools, they say, send us everything, and we will super score them. We will take all of your highest section scores and put them together as if you had one really amazing test date with all of these high scores. Because one of the things about standardized tests, the difference between standardized tests and, say, your transcript, is that standardized tests only show this one moment in time. It only says, how was Katie doing on a Saturday afternoon in February? And so they try to offer this super score option so that you can have a chance to show a couple of your best sides and your best moments. Maybe you had a cold, and they try and give you the benefit of the doubt. Other colleges say, again, we know that sometime you went in there and maybe you had a headache and you didn't do as well, or it was the wrong season for you. And so we want you to take a look at all your scores and pick the one that you think most reflects your best effort. And then we only ask you to send us that one. They call it score choice. You choose, you send it to us. Colleges can't go into your account and suck out all your scores. You choose whichever one you want to send them. And again, you do need to remember that you will need to send them. Often students are confused because you can type your scores into your common application, and so they think, great, I've told the school what my scores are. But in fact, you need to then follow up and officially send them a score report that verifies what you typed into your college application.
The SAT and ACT also give you the opportunity to tell them what schools, what colleges you want the scores to be sent to on the test day itself. And generally speaking, there are a few exceptions, but I'm confident that pretty much everyone listening tonight this applies to. There's no reason, there's no benefit to having your scores sent before you even know what they are. So I pretty much always recommend that you take the test. You don't take the SAT or the ACT up on the offer of waiving the sending fee by writing down a college name and having this score sent off. And then later, after you can see the lay of the land and you know what all of your testing profile looks like, you can then make these super score and score choice decisions. So there's no need to send these scores early. If you want a comprehensive view on different testing policies, you can go to our website, PrepMatters.com, and click on resources. And on that page, you'll see a number of resources, but one of them is a compiled college admissions data page. And you'll see a table of 200 some schools and whether they super score, whether they're score choice, whether they need subject tests or prefer subject tests, since as of a few weeks ago, there's literally 0 schools in the country that require subject tests of all applicants. Katy, were you about to say something about this slide?
Nope, I was
Okay.
about to say that, but then you said it.
Oh, got it. Well, and then one last piece is that Katy's absolutely right. The onus is on you to send these scores officially through the SAT and ACT websites. There are schools out there that will allow for self-reporting. That's a relatively new thing in the last couple of years that's designed to create greater access, because it's problematic for some families to have to pay to send scores to a school that ends up denying them anyway. So there are some schools you can self-report, and then if you're admitted, after you're admitted, if you want to go there, they will then demand the official report. But just be aware of that if you run into that. And generally speaking, if it's not a financial burden to you and you want to play it safe, it's okay to just officially send the scores everywhere.
Yep.
In order to know whether the school has a policy like that or any of these policies, it's always best to go directly to the college website and look up their testing policy page. You or me?
I'll do it.
All right.
So we're going to briefly talk about subject tests. We are not going to spend a whole lot of time on them. But it is important to kind of know all the lingo. And subject tests are something that come up a lot when you're talking about standardized testing. They are also written by the College Board, who create the SAT. And they are just what they say. They are subject specific. So the SAT is designed to kind of test your critical thinking skills and your overall high school achievement, whereas the subject tests are really driven by what have you learned in high school in these particular subjects. And so they're only 1 hour long. You can take up to 3 on any testing day. They're all multiple choice. So they're pretty straightforward exams. They're similar, but not really the same as APs. They're, as they said, different in content and structure, despite the fact that they were both written by the College Board. And one of the nice things is you can register to take them, say, on that October testing date, and then get in there to the test and decide then, ooh, I thought I was going to take literature, but actually I'm going to take world history. So subject tests are in many ways one of those things that you can use to really distinguish your application if you happen to have the sort of time and the capacity. I don't know if we have another slide on this, Jeff. You can go forward if we need to. But only they only have they're offered on all the same test days, and typically we say you want to take them right after you have taken the coursework, the higher level coursework in a given subject. Usually that's the May and June test dates, because usually you are preparing for your final exams in your classes. This year is a weird year, so you can never take them in March. March is only the SAT regular test. But this year you also can't take them in May, because there is no SAT test date in May. And I'd say June is still a question mark. So we'll see. And for many students who intended to take the SAT in March, we've been getting a lot of questions about, well, I was going to take the SAT in March. Should I take the subject test in June and push my SAT off a little further? And the answer to that really truly is your SAT is significantly more important in this process than the subject test. So subject tests are really there to help you have some cool icing on your awesome admissions application cake if you have the space for them. And you can take them truly as late as fall of your senior year on any admission cycle. And that is certainly true this year, that you can take them through the fall with these extended test dates. But we should say not a lot of colleges are looking deeply at these exams. There are no longer, as of last week, any universities in the country that require them. And there's, what do you say, Jeff, about 14 that are still using the language that they recommend them?
Oh, I think it went down to 11.
11, okay. So
Yeah.
I'm not always keeping up. Now that said, I do think for the highly selective schools, typically these are still very helpful. They're a great option to have if you can have it, not something to lose a whole lot of sleep over as you're planning your test calendar if you haven't yet really solidified that SAT or ACT main score. Does that kind of catch on the top points, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to maybe use a case study to illustrate this this conundrum that maybe some of the juniors who are tuning in are facing. You might have a student who was either did take the March SAT or was planning on it and couldn't, and then had, let's call it, biology subject test planned and a math 2 subject test planned for May and June. So and this is in this example, just to kind of make a point here. We have a student took the March SAT, is gonna do a retake because most people will take it at least twice because of the chance of super scoring, and so many schools allow for super scoring, but wanted to shift over because the student is in AP biology and advanced pre-calculus and wants to take advantage of May and June for the subject tests. And now that student obviously can't do it in May. If June still happens, then that student will gladly walk in and take a biology subject test, take a math 2 subject test, see what happens. No, they didn't get 2 shots at it like they would have normally. You would take it in May and then go ahead and take them again in June just to see if it's any better. Score choice is true for all subject tests because no school requires subject tests. So you can, you don't want to go willy-nilly, but you can take a subject test with no harm, no foul because no one can grab a subject test from you. But now the student is thinking, oh gosh, it doesn't look good for June. I don't have any subject tests, and I want to apply to these schools that are saying, yeah, we like to see subject tests. What do I do? I don't want to hang on to the biology material all summer long and then and take it in August. Maybe I could do that for math. I've been learning math all my life, but I don't know if I'm going to be any better off on the biology material in August or in the fall when I'm not taking AP Bio. What do? Well, you've got a couple options, and I want to make sure we didn't lose Katy. Looks like we might have lost her, but she'll chime back in, and I'll make her a host when she comes back in. To Katy's point, until you have your SAT or ACT squared away, until you have that plan mapped out and you feel good about that, then I wouldn't fret too much about subject tests. One, not many schools want them. Two, especially for the class of 2021, especially this year. And I can tell you, because I've heard it from the horse's mouth, actually multiple horses, they're not going to give you a hard time about it this year. Everyone is aware of what's going on. Everyone's aware that there are fewer test dates offered, or maybe there are no test dates that are going to be offered that align with the coursework that you are planning on for subject tests. So in a sense, you could let them go if the June doesn't happen. Paradoxically, however, and I'm talking out both sides of my mouth here, because there is less emphasis on subject tests this year for the class of 2021, if you are able to snag those subject tests, especially for the schools who have historically said, not required, but we like to see them, well, you are emerging even higher above the pack. You are even shinier than you would have been with this icing that's on the cake. So perhaps, especially with the extra time that you have now, assuming that you have extra time because you're doing fewer hours a day commuting to school and being in school, you're not going to your sports practices, maybe it does make sense to keep going with that material and aiming for those July or August or fall dates that are that allow for subject tests in material that you only studied as a student in class during the school year of junior year, but hanging on and trying to grab the subject tests, because if you can, and so many schools aren't expecting them and so many students aren't planning on taking them, you're giving colleges another data point to use to make a decision. Whether a score on a subject test means you're a better student or not, that's not what I'm saying here. I don't think that's the point. And I think the answer is no. That's not evidence that you're a better student. But you're giving colleges a tool, another tool to use as they have to make these really, really tough decisions. I think Katy is back, and so I'm going to make her a co-host so she can join us in the full. Hey, Katy, welcome back.
Hello.
It's all right. I was just talking about the paradox of no, there's not a lot of pressure on the class of 2021 to take subject tests this year because the dates might not be there. Everyone is managing personal, professional, academic things that have nothing to do with subject tests. There's a little bit of relief there. However, if you are able to manage them whenever they are offered and you can collect that data to offer up to a college, well, you could be all the shinier. So I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, as I was saying before, but no pressure to take them. But if you could map it out, there might be some extra oomph in your application.
Super bonus points to them. Yep. I also want to add one of the questions that came up in the question and answer right before I left. Kind of addressed that same point. It was about whether it's better to take the subject test or the AP exam. And in general, neither of those tests is super strong in the admissions process. But the AP exams specifically are not considered admissions exams. So the AP exam is a great option, but if you do well on it, you always self-report. Colleges like to see that. It adds another nice bonus to your application. This year, some major school systems have indicated that they're going to give these tests the same weight, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I think subject tests should still be seen a little bit separately because they are considered an admissions exam.
Well, and let's dig into that. Katy, if you don't mind, I want to present one of my paradoxes, and then I'd like you to take over the AP IB.
I love talking about AP and IB exams, so that's great.
But I totally agree with Katy, and I've said a million times to students, I'd much rather you get an A in an AP course than a 5 on the AP exam if you had to choose, because the grade in the course is by far more powerful in admissions, and it actually correlates much better with success in college than whether you were able to nab a 4 or a 5 on an exam. And that's still true. However, this year, your third quarter, your fourth quarter is wonky, right? We don't know exactly how school districts and private schools are going to manage not just the online courses, but how the grades are going to be calculated and what the transcript is going to say. And everyone's aware of that. I was talking to a student earlier today, and she asked, well, will colleges get that my school district is handling it in a different way from the school district next door or the school district across the country? And the answer is yes, of course, because colleges and admissions offices and the people who are involved in this process are going through exactly what you're going through. So one of the things that Katy and I heard in a webinar, one of these webinars, was that generally it's almost going to be like a gap in the transcripts. If you have a student, and I've always said this, that when colleges look at transcripts, they pay less attention to that number, that GPA, and more attention to what I call the landscape of the transcript. Now more than ever, I feel like this image of landscape makes so much sense, because if you've got strong grades freshman year, strong grades sophomore year, strong grades at the beginning of junior year, and let's say you're a junior, and then there's some wonkiness, whether they're forcing a pass-fail, or your school has said, whatever your grade was in the middle of third quarter, that's what your grade's going to be, and it happened to be a B- at that point. And then you come back senior year, and we're all hoping that senior year you're going to be marching right into the school buildings, and we're all able to gather again, and your grades go back to where they were. Well, you're a student at the level that the pattern suggests, that the trend suggests, and the end of this school year is a gap. I mean, they're going to have to glance over that to some extent, because there's no way for any admissions office to understand in great context with great detail every school district, how every teacher is managing everything that's going on. On top of it, no one knows whether you have a parent, God forbid, who's suffering from coronavirus directly. No one knows whether you have 2 parents who are nurses in the ER, or how you personally are having to manage this. So there is going to be grace in this process, specifically for the time period that we're in right now.
Very much so.
I say all that because if I am in an AP course right now, and I am frustrated with how my online courses are going, I'm not sure how I'm doing, I don't agree with how the classes are being graded, well, maybe I can feel better about how I prepare for the AP exam. And if I have to give colleges, this is similar to what I was saying on subject tests, as much data, as much evidence as possible to make decisions about a very already complicated process, but even more so now, well then maybe I am going to put more energy or my best energy into this AP exam that will look very different this year. And Katie's going to dig into that.
So the AP and IB exams are typically both offered on nationally and internationally scheduled test dates in April and May. And this year, everything is a little bit more confusing. So the IB exams, the International Baccalaureate exams, which are typically offered at the end of your senior year, but sometimes at the end of junior year, those have actually been canceled for the entire May administration. And IB is using the word canceled rather than postponed. So you won't be taking those exams, and you will be receiving scores based on your coursework in the class. But the AP exams are still intending to move forward, and College Board is really committed to making sure that students have access to this exam that they've been preparing for. And what the College Board has done, as you might have heard if you are an AP student, is moved those exams to a format where you can take them online at home. So instead of taking a 3-hour exam sitting in your school building, you'll be taking a 45-minute exam sitting at home. And they've shifted the format of the exams quite a good deal. They've also announced that these exams will be both open note and open book, which does give you an opportunity, as Jeff was saying, to really be in a great position to do well and perform very strongly on these exams. And their colleges have been, and today actually just the University of California system, which of course houses hundreds of thousands of students, they have said this year that they will absolutely give the same credit in their college process in terms of receiving college credit for scores that they have in previous years. So I think they are an indication that colleges are going to try and honor the work you have done in this exam process, which, as Jeff says, kind of gives you a great opportunity to really focus on doing well on this exam. So again, it is not an admissions exam, but it is really a way of you offering some extra great evidence in your application of your scholarly abilities and commitment. Because remember, college is school, and they want to make sure that you are excited and ready for the school part of it. And AP exams are a way to do that. And for IB, you will be receiving a score as if you had taken the exam. And so it can function in the same way. For both IB and AP, you'll get those scores this summer, so you'll know going into the fall which ones you want to send along.
So there are schools that don't need these tests.
We just talked for 45 minutes about tests that not everybody needs.
And there's a list of them. And if you want to see the full list of every higher education institution in the country that does not need a score, go to fairtest.org and you can find that list. And if a school doesn't need a test score, that doesn't mean that they're not a good school or they're not selective or academic. Some of the most selective and prestigious schools are test optional, and you can see some of these are listed here. And these are schools that have been test optional for years. Some more recent than others. University of Chicago went test optional maybe 2 years ago, or maybe a little less than that.
I think it was just last year.
Was it just last year? Time is hard to keep track of these days. Bates and Bowdoin have been test optional for I don't know how long, but for a very, very long time. They were the pioneers in the test optional movement. So just be aware of that. I mean, these test scores are a important piece of the puzzle, but just pieces of a much larger puzzle. And it's a good idea to keep perspective. Now, there have been new developments in the test optional world. Katie, you want to take it from here?
Sure. This is, again, one of the sort of exciting parts of our job. It changes every day. Jeff and I met this morning to finalize the slides about 2 hours before the University of California system announced that they would not be considering tests this year. Now, these schools on this list, and others may follow, and there's a couple others out there already, have announced that in different ways. Most of them are saying for this year's juniors, and several of them are saying for the next 3 cycles. So they are really honoring the conundrum you have right now of building this testing calendar and making sure that your tests can really reflect who you are in your academic process. And so they're not exactly saying we don't think the tests are important. They're just saying we get it that you may not have the opportunity to access the test the way you typically would. Now, part of what that means is that when you take away the standardized tests, on the one hand, it sounds like, whew, what a relief, no more ACT. But what it also does is mean that the other parts of your application become even more critical. You know, if they don't have this one piece, then they are going to be looking more deeply at the other pieces. And so you kind of want to go back to the paradox that Jeff was talking about. You know, if not everyone has access to these options, and you do have access to take these tests, then it's a great idea to continue to try and do well on them so that you have the options of both including them or not including them. If I'm applying to one of these schools, and maybe my test score isn't exactly where I thought it would be, but if I look up the information and I figure out that I'm in kind of the top 25% of students that typically enroll at this school, then I probably want to send that test score along because it will increase my application. And so it's a great opportunity to have a little more flexibility in thinking about how schools are using testing. But you also just want to be careful that you think about overall, how can I create an application that best shows every part of the sort of authentic student and person that I am.
And just to be really, really clear and encourage you to always do your own research and double check everything we say, not because we're ever wrong, but because things change so rapidly. These schools are not test optional forever. Some of these schools have said, we're going to be test optional for the class of 2021 only so far. The University of California system, Katie, tell me if I'm wrong, is test optional just for the class of 2021 so far. Tufts is going to be test optional for 3 years. BU, Case Western, just this year.
I think BU was just this year.
Yeah. Yeah, BU and Case Western, I think. I think Davidson was just this year as well. And I think the Oregon public schools are just now test optional. But I'd have to double check on those. And so the moral of the story is you double check, you find out for every school you're interested in, what is the testing policy, and stay on top of this stuff. But generally, I think that if a school is test driving the test optional approach, it's possible they collect the data they need to make a decision that they like it, that they want to keep that as an option. So it doesn't mean that they aren't going to stay this way.
Right. And another question that we had come in on the Q&A was, do we think that standardized tests will be eliminated this year because of the coronavirus? And I think this is one of the questions that, things may change. Right now, it's pretty clear from both colleges and from the College Board and the ACT that everyone is really committed to keeping this process in place for right now and giving students as many opportunities as possible to take these exams. And I'm pretty confident that the College Board and the ACT will do everything in their power to make sure that is still the case. But none of us can predict the future, and I think everyone at every university and every organization wants to make sure that we are as careful and healthy and safe as we can be. So if this pushes further along into the next several months, we could see more changes.
So that's
your top bullet point here.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's wrap up the episode today with some big ideas. I mean, we're all rolling with the punches in every area of our lives right now. And the way you can roll with the punches in terms of your testing calendars, stay on top of these updates. And if you've got enough on your plate, then we're here to help. So you can reach out to us. Plan, map things out early. If it doesn't feel early anymore, it doesn't mean you don't get started now. It's never too late to start your roadmap of not just your testing calendar, but all of the other moving parts of your education and the college admissions process. And dig into this stuff first. Collect the data on yourself. Start with practice tests. Monitor your progress. That's part of the test prep process. And then finally, keep this in perspective. It's just a piece of a piece of a piece of a piece of your life. You know, college is going to be significant. It's going to be important. But that's also just a sliver of what's to come for you in the decades and decades that lay before you.
Right.
Well, we hope that you found this useful. Hope that you enjoyed it. Here is our contact information. If you have questions for us specifically, reach out. If you have questions about this class or other classes, it's probably better to reach out to classes@PrepMatters.com. That's what that email's for. And
or tweet us at #PMTV.
Yes, thank you. We should have said that. Yeah, please use the hashtag. We're excited about that. So.
I'm pretty excited about the hashtag.
Thank you, everyone. And I think that's it for today, right, Katie?
Have a great evening. Thanks so much for spending this time with us. Take care.
Bye-bye.